making petitfores. Yes, it can be a very lengthy process, but I think I found a easy and quick way to have something petite and delicious. Well, first of all, we want to start with our Duncan Hines cake mix. You can use any flavor works. I like to put coconut oil because it's a better oil. Um, Buttermilk, and I use half and half. 1 part buttermilk, 1 part water. I should say 1 cup of water, and a half a cup of coconut oil, and 4 large eggs. I also, in frosting my petitfores, this becomes my fondant. You have to heat it in the microwave for about 30 seconds or so. You don't want it too hot where it's boiling, but you definitely want it warm enough where the frosting is very liquidy and it'll dry to a nice fondant. Okay, so I've already mixed up my white cake mix, and I'm just going to put it in my pan. It takes about anywhere from 15 to 23 minutes to make the cake. You want to let it cool. And then I've got another trick that makes petitfores a lot easier. Takes the guesswork out, takes the math out. When you're doing a lot of baking, definitely you don't have a whole lot of time to do a lot of extra math and thinking. So I've sprayed my pan already with my Baker's Joy or Pam. Both of them are good. Even the Kroger's brand is good as well. So I'm just going to spread this real well, evenly as possible. Some critics have said when you spread your cake out, don't shake it. Well, you take your choice on which one you want to do. Of course, we want to wash our hands all the time. But I like shaking this especially for the petitfores because it will give it a nice, even balance. And notice, I just didn't go horizontal. I went vertical and horizontal. We're going to pop this in the oven for 23 minutes and set a timer. When I first started cooking, I didn't use timers, and boy, I tell you, I had to guess a whole lot of times. But we'll come back to you in just a second once they come out the oven and show you another trick. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I want to explain is how I make the cake mix. First of all, I take the cake mix, I put my liquids in first. I put the cup of buttermilk, half a cup of water, and a half a cup of milk, buttermilk, a half a cup of coconut oil, melted, and 4 large eggs. I put the milk and the eggs and the vanilla in the bowl first. Then I turn on the mixer and let it mix for 30 seconds. And then when it's time for the 2-minute mark, I add my coconut oil, because coconut oil will turn to a solid like butter if you add it to a cold product. So first thing you definitely want to do is melt that oil, and then while it's beating that next 2 minutes to come together, then you want to add the coconut oil, and the texture will remain nice and creamy. The strawberry is almost complete, and so while we're waiting on that, we're just going to grease our pan with our Baker's Joy. And I like to go both directions. Some people go, well, why my cake stick? Well, it's stuck because you didn't go both directions or cover all of the bases. All right, it's ready. today I'm making these for our awesome woman of God, Miss Tanya Dean out of Terrell, Texas. And so when we pour the batter, of course we want to kind of pour it all over the pan evenly as possible. Remember, I just talked about shaking the pan and all of that. You don't have to. I tend to like to, just for the evenness of the dough, of the batter, I'm sorry. Can you see the batter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, again, we're just going to make it even. Also, I suggest that when you make box cakes, because the dry ingredients have basically set in the box till we got to the store, put it in a bowl and using your wire whip just to break up some of the lumps. That will definitely help. That will definitely help break up some of the lumps and cause you to have a more consistent texture in your cake. Okay. So we're going to get this in the oven. Remember, vertically and horizontally. And they say don't shake it because it makes it uneven, but it'll do just fine. Be back in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have melted a little bit of chocolate, and I'm gonna put approximately a tablespoon of grapeseed oil in my chocolate. It helps the chocolate to thin itself out, and because I don't use vegetable oil or corn oil or canola oil, I try to use the best oils, grapeseed, coconut, avocado, oils of that nature. So I have taken a little bit of my chocolate bar and melted it. These are my iced Petitfores, and we're going to talk about how to do that in just a moment. And now I'm going to do some chocolate dipped strawberries, because I do want a few chocolate dipped strawberries on top of my Petitfores. Typically, you want to use the smaller ones. The smaller ones are better, but sometimes you can't find small strawberries in strawberry season because they're all big. But anyway, I'm just going to dip these in here and swing off the chocolate, the excess chocolate. And you'll know when it's finished because the swinging will be shorter. And we're just going to put that on that parchment paper. And this is just going to be my first topping. So I'm going to do a few strawberries. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the frosting. So this is the frosting I used. You can use any frosting. I don't suggest you use the whipped frosting, but any of them will be fine. So I'm gonna just simply take my frosting and put it in the microwave for about 30 seconds. It's gonna be nice and warm. Again, you don't want it to boil, you want it nice and warm. So I'm gonna put my 6 Petitfores, and I've already stuffed them with my filling. See, like right now, I've only had it in there for about 29 seconds, so it's still kind of thick. You want it to be a little bit thinner than that, okay? So we're gonna put it back in the oven, the microwave. And while we're waiting, I'm gonna just tear a little bit more parchment paper and get ready to decorate. Get ready to decorate my Petitfores. Well, anyway, so now it's nice and liquidy. See the difference? It's nice and thin. Okay, I want to stir it up just a little bit. You want to make sure that your Petitfores have enough room where they're not next to each other. So, in a circular motion, we're just going to cover the Petitfores, starting at the top because it will go to the bottom. And of course you want to just keep your eye to make sure that you cover all the spaces and places. And it's okay because I put it on top of parchment paper, so that means I can go back and scrape it off as well. Now once it dries, see how beautiful? It's already done. Half the time, beautiful still. Okay, you can stop. Okay, instead of, measuring them out, cutting them, all of that, got my trusty dusty little cutter here. And this makes them perfect. And some people will argue, well, this probably takes twice as long. Yeah, but if it's uneven, if you cut it and it's uneven, then you've got to fix that. This is the same size all the time. Love it. Okay, so I'm cutting them. And then, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to scoop out two real quick. Okay. And then, for my filling, I'm going to use my favorite store in the whole wide world, a Kroger brand premium preserve. Blackcurrant is my favorite, but I'm just going to take my mini spatula and just put a little bit on there and put it right on top. Perfect. Now, again, using the methods I taught you with the frosting, simply go over it with the frosting using the circular motion so it covers all sides. And you got perfect Petitfores. Hey, this is Cherie. Look for my next video and we'll talk about something else fun. Hey, good eating from generation to generation. Cafe 1189, out of here.